up and try again.
Welcome back. We're going to continue with defining functions in Python. Now I will demonstrate a couple of techniques in order to separate some task between the main, or we call it the main, and the actual method definition or function definition. Notice that we don't really have a main in scripting or per se on Python. However, some of you might have come from the context of programming or computer science, where you've been testing in C or C++ or Java or C Sharp. You have a main method. That's what it's called, the main method. The main method is what triggers the entire functionality, the entire program. In this case, will trigger the entire script. We don't really have a main because since this is a script, as soon as we find the operations that calls the functions, that will trigger the entire functionality. But sometimes in order to follow conventions or in order to follow way of styles, we have to include the main. So today we're going to do a couple of examples, and we're going to start with function example 03.python. So the whole idea here is to write a function that takes two arguments, a string s and a number, an integer n. The script shall print n times the string s. Okay, this should be s. So what we need to do here is, first of all, we need to interact with the user. And of course, let's just start like a very basic script that we know so far. So basically, we need two things. We need a string s that will come from the user input. Please enter a string. So that will basically extract the string. The second question is extract the numbers. So for that, we need to transform the whole number, the input from the user. Okay. Please enter a number. Nothing new here. On line 5, basically we extract the information. We know it's a string. We store it in the string s, in the variable s. The second, the line 6, basically we extract a number, but just to make sure, we transform that into a whole number. We store it an n. Now, the whole purpose is to print the string s n times. So how do we do this? We can use a for loop, a repetitive structure, right? We can say for x in the range of, let me demonstrate a couple things here. We're going to include that guy, right? And the only thing we're going to do, we're going to print the string s. That's what we need to do in general case. I'm going to save this guy. I'm going to run it. Python 3, function example 3. Enter a string, so to be. Enter a number, 3. So there prints 3 times Serving. Okay, nothing really new that. We discussed this functionality in previous examples. What we need to do now is to write the function. The function we didn't specify here, but let me just make it more formal. Write a function called print n times. Yeah. That will take two arguments, a string s and an int n. Yeah. So the function, it will look like this. The function, remember that we saw last time. We define the function, and the function is called print n times. So define print n times, and it says it will take two arguments, a string s and an int n. What we're gonna do inside is basically this part. So I'm gonna migrate kindly these two lines here. Of course, with the proper indentation. Yeah. So we did that. And in order to run this program successfully, we're going to write that function called main. The main, it will be in charge of interact with the user, like what we did here. So again, this is divide and conquer, separation of duties. The main is responsible to basically extract the information, and then we'll call the function print n times. So after we extract s and n on line 3 and 4, we're gonna call the string s and the int n. Okay, two functions. We have the main function, we have the print n times. Now I want you to notice something. I'm gonna save this, and I will try to run this thing again. And notice that this thing, it won't run. Nothing wrong. I mean, you might think something is missing. The only problem here is that we define a function main. We define a function print n times, but there's nothing that triggers this whole thing. We need the function call somewhere in the script. And we're gonna do that thing maybe here. Maybe here is a good place to print. After we define everything from line 1 to 13, we can call here main. Yeah, this will trigger. Line 15 will trigger everything. So now it makes a difference because the interpreter of Python is going to come here. When you run, it's like, oh, I don't need to call you right now. Oh, I don't need to call you right now. Oh, I need to call you right now. So line 15 will say, go to the main, please. Upstairs, there's something called main. Go get it. And you notice it's been highlighted. It will come here, Python. And I need to call you. And here in the meanwhile, we interact with the user. And then we call the function print n times. When we call this, notice that I highlighted. It will call this function immediately with an s, with an n that we provided here. And it will actually elaborate on that. Let's try this. You see now that we're asking, and it prints 5 times. Let me show you a typical mistake that happens. How about if we call main before on line 1? Would that make a difference? I already told you about mistake, so probably you think it will make a difference, of course. So when we try to run this, Python will complain in a different form. Notice that the error says name error. It says the main is not being defined. And this is normal because when Python comes here and interprets like, oh, I need to call main, but main until now is not being called. It is here indeed, but it hasn't been stored anywhere in memory for Python. So first of all, we need to define everything first. And when everything is being done, so the only thing we have to do is basically put everything towards the end, like this. Otherwise, we're gonna receive name error, which is name main is not being defined. So that's a very typical mistake that we obtain. Again, we create a main only to demonstrate the function call. In scripting, it's not really used to have mains, but because we're using Python and because we're interested to do this divide and conquer, it's kind of important to separate the duties of each functionality. So on line 14, we call the function main that is defined on line 1. Internally of the main, we call the function print n times, which is defined indeed in line 10. And this is how it is. We call each other, we come back and forward, and that's how it actually works. I will be posting this on the website, and in case I have any questions, please let me know.